All right, guys. Hey, it's Monday, Blue Monday. It is Blue Monday. I wanted to stay in bed, but I couldn't. I had to get up and bring you an editorial. And I've got two for you. The first one's going to be really short, and then we're going to go into the lead editorial that comes out of New York. The first one, and the lead one, the long one that I'm going to give you, I really want you to pay attention to that one and listen. It's very important. But this one brings some questions. And I'm going to put a link to both of these in the description box below. And I want you to comment in the comment section what you think about these stories. This first one, I went through like 4 different news outlets to read this. It's really short. All of them are really short, and they're just not talking about this. And I wonder why. Because it's not a small story to me. It seems like they'd be talking about it, but no one's talking about this. Comes to us from NBC Dallas Fort Worth 5 News. Thank you, NBC Dallas Fort Worth 5 News, for this story. We're going to do an editorial on it. An off-duty Dallas police officer accidentally shot his son Saturday evening after mistaking him for an intruder, DeSoto police say. Police were called about 6 p.m. to the 1400 block of Carriage Creek Drive after the caller reported the shooting. Now, the victim, an adult male, was taken to a local hospital with a gunshot wound to his right forearm. That's what the police are saying. The injury was not thought to be life-threatening. No arrests have been made. Initial reports indicate the shooting was an accident. The identities of the officer and his son have not been released, but people are saying that off-duty officer thought his son was an intruder and shot him. Now, it may be true. That may be true, but why aren't they talking more about it? Why haven't they released the names? Because, if this was just Joe from the block who shot his son, Joe Q from the block, everybody would be named. Yeah, John Q shot his son, John QQ, and he thought, they'd be doing that. But it's a cop. It's a shooting. It's in Dallas. Shut up. Don't say a word. Snitches get stitches. That's what they're saying, right? So nobody's talking about this. And I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. I welcome your theories and hypotheses. It's okay to have a theory. It's okay to have an opinion. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right one. It just means this is kind of what I'm thinking. Based on the fact that they're not talking about it, they're not naming the police officer nor his son, and that he thought his son was an intruder. He's still a police officer. He's an off-duty police officer. I don't know. Does he have dementia? Is he starting to go crazy? Is something going on? Was his son breaking in? What are the facts here? We want to know. Moving on to our lead story. Comes to us from the New York Daily Times. You're going to love this one. The New York Daily Times brings us this story. We're going to do an editorial on it right now out of New York. The city's largest police union is engaged in a massive push to get rank-and-file cops to vote against a charter revision that'll boost the power and jurisdiction of the city's police watchdog group. I'm going to say that again. He wants them to vote against a charter revision that'll boost the power and jurisdiction of the city's police watchdog group. CopWatchers. This is ours. OURS. The Police Benevolent Association argues if the Charter Revision Commission proposal is passed, the Civilian Complaint Review Board will be able to get more funding, add 2 additional members, one of whom will be chosen by the public advocate, increase its subpoena power, and be able to launch an investigation if it's determined cops have lied during questioning. The NYPD commissioner will also have to provide the CCRB with a written explanation if he doesn't follow the agency's discipline recommendation. For the last month, the PBA has tacked up posters in local precincts urging a no vote November 5th on question 2. Remember that, you New York people. One poster acquired by the Daily News read this: "The job is dead. Don't let CCRB bury it." The poster shows a cloaked figure with a CCRB crest for a head digging a grave. Turn out and vote no on question 2, the poster said. Another poster read, stop the CCRB power grab. So the Community Review Board is at a power grab because they're trying to get a little bit of jurisdiction here where they can, initiate investigations into when they think cops are lying. They can, what was the wording they used here for the police commissioner? I'm going to get it here for you. They can get a written explanation from the commissioner if he doesn't follow their disciplinary recommendations. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with saying, well, I didn't want to discipline this cop who slapped the handcuffed suspect because we want to know why. Why is he allowed to do that? Cops are getting away with stuff and we're not allowed to know why. Now I understand the unions and that, well, it's disciplinary and we can't tell just anybody. I get that part of it. But when cops are getting away with shit, I don't get that. You know that documentary I watched, 16 Shots, about Chicago, Van Dyke, 20 allegations of misconduct, 0 disciplinary actions. We want to know why. You don't get 20 allegations of misconduct and have all 20 be unfounded. At least one of 20 has to be founded somewhere. Come on. What, people just complain against Van Dyke because they don't like the guy's face? Come on, man. There's something going on there. And as we see, he was convicted of second-degree murder and given 6.5 years for shooting a 17-year-old with a knife who was walking away from him. That's what the video showed. I watched the video. It's in the documentary. The PBA has also been tweeting reminders to the public to vote against the proposal, arguing it'll leave New York City less safe. New York City is already less safe. Cops are on the street. PBA President Patrick Lynch, we've seen this guy in the news before, says, quote, the CCRB's rampant anti-police bias and already bloated budget have allowed it to collect and even actively solicit thousands of patently false or frivolous complaints against police officers every year. Even though 98% of those complaints result in no finding of misconduct, every single one damages a police officer's career. Police officers are already frozen by the endless barrage of second guessing. Handing this dysfunctional agency more money, more staff, and more power will leave the city even less safe. So he says some things in there, that I want to go over just one thing in there that he said, though. He's talking about 98% of complaints result in a finding of misconduct. Well, yeah, we've investigated our own and found no fault. What do you think? Shoulder to shoulder, we defend each other. It's the thin blue line. But he says thousands of patently false or frivolous complaints against police officers every year. Who determines those complaints are frivolous? Who determines that? The police do. That's who determines it. So somebody comes in, they say, I want to complain. I've been wronged by a police officer. And they give the complaint. And you go, that's frivolous. Get out of here. Who determines that's frivolous? It's not frivolous to the guy who felt offended. It's not frivolous to the guy who felt disrespected. I'm going to give you one about myself. I had a deputy that posted something, that thing in Hemet. Remember when I went off on the 2 cops shining flashlights in my face and I did the video? San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy posted that video on Facebook talking about, look, here's this guy. This is what he does to cops. And a deputy here in Yucaipa shared it on Facebook, then lied about it and said he doesn't share stuff on Facebook. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And then it was changed, and now you can no longer access that. But anyway, about 11 days later, he's screaming at me on the street. You guys saw that video yourselves. For no reason. I'm like, what the hell is he screaming about? And I walked over to see what's going on. Hey, James! And he's yelling at me. 6 days later, he accuses me of something I didn't do, and then goes off on me and says I'm refusing to do this and that, and I give him my name and date of birth, and then he says to dispatch he's refusing to give me his date of birth, and then he arrests me. So that's the track record there. Yeah, I called him a POS. I told him he's retaliating. I said, you're a POS. This is retaliation because I recorded you the other day. And then no, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, well, yeah, it is. But I made a complaint saying, okay, first he posts something about me on Facebook. Then he yells at me for no reason. Then he accuses me of something I didn't do, accuses me of not giving him my information when I gave him my name and date of birth, and then arrests me. I'm making a complaint. This cop is harassing me. This is harassment. This is bullying. And you know what? When I went to make the complaint, you know what the sergeant countered my complaint with? Well, I've heard the radio call and you were yelling at him and you weren't really nice. You were kind of nasty to the officer when you were yelling at him. So my complaint about this cop harassing me and bullying me was countered with a First Amendment right of free speech. Well, you were pretty nasty. I heard the radio call. You were getting loud with him. So we're not allowed to use our First Amendment right to free speech when we feel wronged, when we feel an officer is harassing us and bullying us and we get loud and maybe we use some profanity. That's wrong, man. So I don't know why you're making a complaint against the officer. You wronged the officer. That's kind of how it was turned on me. That's why I said my internal affairs complaint was probably either used as toilet paper or a dartboard in the break room, because it's going nowhere. And this is kind of what is the temperature of the country. This is California, and we see in New York sort of the same thing. He said there are frivolous and false complaints. Who determines that they're frivolous? And why are they false? Because the police department, the internal affairs, and the supervisors that investigated those complaints found them to be false. Well, hell yeah, they found them to be false. We investigated our own and we found no fault. But they say that it's damaging a police officer's career. I'm sure Van Dyke's career was really damaged when he shot that 17-year-old after having 20 allegations of misconduct. What, all those were frivolous? Against one officer, those were all frivolous? But that's where the country's heading. California, New York, two different states. We're seeing kind of similar similarities with people making complaints. Well, you wronged the officer. You shouldn't even be complaining. I don't know why you're complaining. You were the one that yelling at the officer. Yeah, he's harassing me. All I was doing was filming a single vehicle collision. Didn't say nothing to him. Walked across the street legally. It was accused of being illegal, unlawful, when it was a legal crossing. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm just saying that these complaints, and now they have New York City has the community review board, and they're attacking it. Trying to hold it down, trying to give it less power, make sure it doesn't get any more power. We don't want you coming at us. We don't want you reviewing our police officers and reviewing our management. The Lieutenants Benevolent Association has joined the PBA's fight when Association President Lou Turco wrote members, quote, "If these measures are approved, it will further exacerbate the incredibly restrictive environment in which our officers now find themselves, while attempting to effectively police and protect the citizens of New York City." I'm sure Eric Garner was protected, wasn't he? All he was doing was selling cigs. "Every action and every split-second life and death decision made in the field will be placed under even stricter and harsher scrutiny by the predominantly naive, inexperienced, and generally anti-law enforcement investigation staffing CCRB." So wanting to have officers who we feel lie in an investigation reviewed, wanting to know why an officer wasn't disciplined when there was an allegation of misconduct. That makes us anti-law enforcement, and that's what they're saying. Every time we're out there recording with our cameras, every time we're recording a traffic stop, every time we're recording a vehicle search, every time we're recording an arrest, they say we're anti-cop. Oh, you're anti-cop. You're trying to make me do something wrong. You're trying to get me doing something bad on camera, and you're going to put it all over YouTube. Well, if you do something bad, you're over 21. I'm not twisting your arm. But that's the sentiment of law enforcement, that we are anti-law enforcement and we're out there trying to record them and do things wrong. That's the CCRB, this Community Review Board. All they're trying to do is make sure there's accountability and transparency in the NYPD, and the Lieutenant Benevolent Association and the PBA are trying to make it like they're anti-law enforcement, naive, inexperienced. I'm going to tell you this. When you're out there recording traffic stops over a period of time, months, maybe a year, your experience is no longer inexperienced. You literally become experienced in how it works. You do. By watching, you can get a little bit of experience by watching it, by seeing the process, by reading. Oh, I've read about law enforcement and how, arrests are supposed to be made, how traffic stops are supposed to be done, how vehicle searches are to be done. I've read all that stuff. I studied it in school. I'm not talking high school or grade school. I'm talking college. So I know a little bit, but they want to act like we know nothing and we're just a bunch of naive anti-cop supporters out there running around trying to get them caught doing bad stuff. It's just not true. Closing with this, a source with the knowledge of the charter revision proposal balked at Turco's comments, claiming if the CCRB gets a budget boost, it'll be able to hire better trained investigators. There you go. CCRB Executive Director Jonathan Darsh said in a statement, quote, "The proposed charter changes will increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the CCRB. Should the ballot proposal pass, the CCRB will be able to implement the changes, most of which are effective March of next year." So all of you in New York, November 5th is right around the corner. I want you to go vote yes on question 2. Go vote yes on question 2. Let's get this review board in place, because once New York City gets this review board, once they get their stuff, all of a sudden other states may follow suit. Detroit, Los Angeles, San Bernardino County, all of these may start to follow suit in getting their own community review boards, in getting power, in getting jurisdiction, in getting accountability and transparency put back into the police departments, where there's a lot of secrecy there. Well, we can't tell you that. No, you don't want to tell us because it might incriminate that department or that agency. Am I making myself clear? I got to go, guys. I'm way out of time. Community Leo Watch, letting you know what's going on with Leos. That's law enforcement officers across your nation and each community. Happy Monday, and I will be talking to you later.